Today, we are talking about the valuable lessons that we've learned when doing a transaction with Olympia Trust. And we were on a borrowing side on this transaction. So stay tuned to learn the valuable lessons that we've learned. Welcome to another episode of Same Page. We're your hosts, Sarah Semajus.
And I'm Lenard and Sarah.
Today, we're coming to you with some valuable lessons that we've learned when we did a transaction through Olympia Trust. So before we get into it, I'd like to explain what Olympia Trust is and what they do. So this is in no way an endorsement for this company, but as investors, we have learned that you can use registered funds, so like your RSPs, your LIRA, your TFSAs, to invest in real estate. A lot of people don't know that and think they can only put it in a bank and the bank will manage it for them. But you can actually take that money and put it to in trust in another company, such as Olympia Trust, and there are other companies out there as well. And it's self-directed, which means that you get to decide what you invested in and at which rate for how long. You literally decide all the terms. So once you put it in that company, then when you find somebody who needs capital for their deal, then you can work out some terms that are favorable for both parties and go ahead and lend that money to them at the rate. It could be a much higher rate than you're receiving with your bank. So with that being said, we did a transaction, and what is the first lesson that we've learned during this transaction? So
one of the first lessons that we learned is that you need to know the rules of how to process this type of transaction. So the lesson that we learned is the fact that when you're doing transactions that are where the borrower is lending $50,000 or less, then you only require one lawyer for that transaction. But if it's anything more than that, then the borrower has to have his or her own lawyer.
Exactly. So I think somebody told me that amount may increase to $80K.
Yeah.
But for now, what we knew is that above $50K, you need two lawyers.
Exactly.
As in, the lender needs to have their own lawyer, and the borrower also needs to have their own lawyer.
Exactly. So that's the first thing that we learned. And then on the same kind of wavelength to that, so like the fact our lawyer was familiar with how to do this type of transaction, but the borrower's lawyer, at least from our impression, this was his first time doing a type of transaction. So to make things a lot smoother, it's really important that you have a lawyer on your team that's able to do these transactions that you can recommend to the borrower when you're borrowing funds.
Yeah, and I think what's important, and I don't want this to come off as like we choose your lawyer, but it goes a lot smoother if you already done it before. So I would just choose a lawyer that has dealt with these type of transactions before. They know the rules, and even maybe they already have a contact at Olympia Trust. So what we found is that because it would have been better if we were like, okay, this lawyer has experience, this lawyer also has experience. Here's the information to both lawyers. And we sort of like keep in control of the entire transaction, communicating with them. Obviously, the lender has to set up the terms and communicate with their lawyer. But then we have an open communication with both lawyers so that we know what's going on the entire time. And I think that way as well, it's not as taxing on the lender. Because oftentimes the lender, maybe they haven't done it yet,
Exactly,
right?
yeah.
And they may change their minds if it's too much work, if they have to go back and forth and they thought it was going to be smooth. In this case, we're very grateful that our lender was very patient and they really wanted to do this deal with us. So they were communicating with their lawyer every step of the way. But it would have been good if we had avoided them having to go through all that trouble and constant emails and constant phone calls, because they had a full-time job too. So definitely try to have two lawyers that have done this already and you keep in communication with them
throughout the whole
process. Lesson 2. Lesson 2. Do not assume that the representative from Olympia Trust knows everything. One thing that we thought is that, hey, but this is your company.
Yeah, you work for this company.
You work for this company. You should know all the rules and whatnot. And that was not the case. We had to learn a lot of the rules from our lawyer. A lawyer is saying, you can't have. Actually, just to give you a little bit of background, the deal was funded. It's only our lawyer that was saying that you can't fund this deal if the lender doesn't have a lawyer. So we had to give it back. We had to give the money back to do it properly. But Olympia Trust had no problem doing the deal, not following the rules, right? So yourself, you have to be informed. Talk to your lawyer specifically to know all the rules of borrowing and lending, because Olympia Trust is not going to register the charge, is not going to make sure that you're following all the rules. They're basically going to pull out a checklist of the information that you need to provide them, and if that information is provided, the deal gets funded. It could be good and bad in the sense that as the borrower, it's easy, but as a lender, you want to be protected, right? So you definitely want to make sure that you learn the rules mostly from your lawyer.
Exactly. And another valuable lesson that we learned was the fact that at the end of the day, when it comes to any deal, you have to be on top of everyone. So you have to follow up. You have to go the extra mile, and not only following up with the lawyer in this case, but also the lender, and keeping that open line of communication, keeping everyone informed of the next steps, and then also following up where you need to follow up.
Which means emailing the representative from Olympia Trust, emailing your lawyer, and in this case, we wish we would have been able to email the lender's lawyer as well, just to make sure that everything was going smoothly and frequently. You want to make sure that you're following up frequently.
Yeah.
And we didn't shy away. I mean, I think more towards the end, we were more constantly emailing and calling. But initially, we were like, well, maybe it's just that long. It just takes that long.
Exactly.
But then we found out, wait a minute, it's not supposed to take that long. Even though we knew because we had done another deal, but we thought maybe because of the amount that was being borrowed that it was a little bit more complicated, which wasn't the case.
No.
So we definitely learned that an open communication is valuable, and making sure that you constantly follow up and see where they're at with that file.
Yeah. Well, that's all we have for you guys today. I hope this was very valuable. Once again, if you have any questions or concerns, please feel free to reach out to us. Like and subscribe to this channel. And until next time, everyone.
Don't forget to live your truth.